Hey, it's Dr. Mike T. Nelson back again with the Flex Diet podcast. All things related to increase in performance, body comp, and health via a flexible approach. And we're sponsored by the Flex Diet certification. Go to flexdiet.com, flexdiet.com. You can sign up to the waitlist there. So you'll be the first one notified once the certification opens again. And that'll also put you on the daily newsletter, which is most of my content now. Probably 90+% goes out via the newsletter. So I can just write about whatever I want related to these topics and send it directly to you. So go to flexdiet.com. Today on the podcast, my buddy Mario from Toronto, Canada is back on again. You may remember him from a previous episode where we talked about gym protocols regarding COVID and what to look out for and what gyms are doing. Today we kind of go through a brief rundown of some of the more popular gym and fitness chains in, I'd say, probably the world, and especially in Canada and North America. What are some of the pros of them? What are some of the cons? And if this is not necessarily a gym that you normally work out in, I'd be willing to bet you've got friends or family members that do. And they may not necessarily want to hear your opinion about it either. So you can send them this podcast if you like. So check out a discussion here with Mario. Thank you so much for listening. Here we go. Cool. Welcome to the Flex Diet podcast. And my guest Mario is back here again. You may recognize him from a previous episode where we talked about what gyms are doing in the midst of COVID and trying to get ready and to open. And today we have kind of I wouldn't say similar topic, but he had a good idea of presenting what are some different options for people in terms of commercial gyms that are out there versus training in your garage? And what are some of the claims that are made, and are they accurate or non-accurate? So welcome back to the Flex Diet podcast.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. It's always fun to sit down with you, Mike, and kind of talk no nonsense about what's going on out there. And I've always seen you as a voice of reason in a sea of craziness. No, always.
Getting more crazy now.
Yeah, tell me about it, buddy. Tell me. But yeah, ever since the beginning, when I first kind of started reading your stuff way back on T Nation, like I guess
back in the
12
day.
years ago. Yeah, way back then, even longer, 15 years ago. It kind of it always intrigued me, your approach and your level, even-handed kind of evidence-based approach. You're one of the first to use those terms, evidence-based approach. So I respect that, and I think that as much as you influenced me very, very much in my career, my development over the last few years. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And now, unfortunately, the evidence base is almost, in my opinion, gone so far the other way that if you don't have 17 studies to support something, people get all mad. But that's another topic for another day.
And yeah, fair enough. But it kind of ties in. It's a nice segue to what we're going to talk about today, which really is exactly that. Like, everybody touts evidence, and as you refer to them as PubMed ninjas, and they cite this study and that study and the other one, and all that is great. But ultimately, to the end user, and by that I mean the fitness consumer, does it really matter? I mean, yes, because it keeps everybody honest, but they're not going to go through reams and reams of data. They're not going to read paper after paper to try to determine, one little bit of information versus another bit of information, and then compare it. Oh, was this a gold standard study? Was this a peer-reviewed study? And how many citations? They're not going to do that. So I think it's up to us, who are those front-facing health and fitness professionals, to kind of wade through that for them and help kind of encapsulate into a digestible format and say, here you go. And again, if I may be wax a little bit sycophantic here, you've always been really good at that. You've always been really good at taking really, really complex knowledge and ideas and taking it down into a really digestible format. And I think that's something that we can continue to do here with something that's as simple as this.
Yeah.
So some of the more so right now, as I mentioned to you before we started the podcast, I'm working with an organization called Tapout Fitness. And Tapout Fitness, you may be familiar with the brand. They were affiliated with the UFC and whatnot. So now they've kind of expanded their brand into more what they call martial arts infused fitness. And in the US, there's about 30 some odd locations right now, and they tend to be smaller studios. In Canada, we're taking a slightly different approach. Where I am in Toronto, our first flagship location, it's almost 30,000 square foot facility that we're building.
Wow, that's good size.
Yeah, it's amazing. When you come up, you got to see it. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, definitely.
It's really beautiful. And what we're doing is we're running these classes, these martial arts infused classes, but we'll also have a full service offering, a full gym with, all the standard, life fitness, Cybex, all of that stuff, weight training equipment, barbells, dumbbells, platforms, all that stuff. So it's great. And so what I've been working on the last little while is making certain that we have the right marketing to support both of those things. And based on my work in the past with other organizations, I've seen that there's a lot of confusion in the consumer base, consumer market rather, of what all these things do. So, we've all heard of CrossFit. We all know what CrossFit is as a branded kind of form of exercise. And everybody has an opinion on CrossFit, good or bad, and that's not necessarily fair. Some of the things that have been levied towards CrossFit are unfair. Some of them are. But that holds true with any organization. They're just one of the first and the biggest to develop that real sense of community.
Yes.
Which has been intensely helpful, and I think is one of the most amazing things that they do. Is Definitely. That incredible sense of, oh man, that sense of community. It's remarkable. My partner, she did CrossFit many years ago as her first foray into exercise, formal exercise, and did it for a couple of years until she was hurt, which is, that's the whole other, that's the discussion there. But anyway, but I can tell you, it's been about 6 years since she's done any CrossFit, but yet she still maintains all of those friendships that she made in there. Yeah. And most do not participate in the activity anymore, but yet they're still, they still go to the Christmas parties for the studios, the boxes rather. It's remarkable, and that to me is really amazing. And kudos to CrossFit for doing that, Uncle Rabdo and Pukey the Clown notwithstanding.
Yeah. The other part I think is amazing about CrossFit too is that if you would have told me 8 years ago there's going to be a new franchise model, whatever, if we just use those terms, and it's going to be old school gyms, there's going to be no machines, no treadmills, you're going to have rowers, some Airdyne bikes, mainly barbells, bumpers, people doing Olympic lifts, and it's going to be, most gyms I saw, even now, it's going to be more women than guys at the gym, and you can go to any major city almost in the world now and have access to a gym like that. I would have said, you are batshit insane, crazy. That'll never happen. I would love this. This would be amazing, but that is the dumbest idea I've ever heard, and I was completely wrong.
and you know what? We all were. Yeah. And that's the point. I'm again, just like you, when it first came on the scene, I thought, this is insane. No one's going to do this. No one understands what it is. No one, you're not going to get women to go and, do clean and presses and deadlift. Yeah. We can barely get them out of at the time, you can barely get them out of the Zumba class or the body pump class, right, to get them to, up in the regular gym. So, but they did it, man. They did it. And that's amazing. Yeah. And kudos to them.
Totally.
So that success obviously has spawned some real, I don't want to say imitators, because there are people who have taken that concept. And I think the biggest strength of CrossFit is, as I mentioned, the sense of community, and able to take that and apply their interpretation of science to create workouts. And, one of the first and one of the largest now is the Orange Theory. And I know up around here we have, there's dozens and dozens Orange Theories in the Toronto area where I am, and effectively all over Canada. I think they have a few hundred studios all over Canada now, and it's massive. And I did some work with them years ago, setting them up in various provinces throughout the country. Um, and Orange Theory, I don't know how familiar you are with. Do you have them in your neighborhood there?
Yeah, there's a fair amount of them around now. They've kind of grown in popularity quite a bit over the last couple of years.
They really have, and that's a large virtue of that. Frankly, is their marketing to franchisees has been very, very strong, and the promise of you can be rich off your the standard. Which is a whole other discussion, but we're not going to talk about the business model today. That's a different discussion. But certainly the science behind it. I remember when Orange Theory first opened up, and I started seeing them popping up. I didn't know what it was, and I just thought Orange Theory Fitness, and I didn't know what it was. I thought maybe it was a juice bar at first. It was really quite confusing.
Kind of sounds that way.
Yeah, and because they had the windows all covered up with the decals, and we couldn't see in. And anyway. So I figured out what it was. And so the basic premise for those who don't know is the idea is that you're going to do a workout that's cardio based, has some resistance component, and you're going to keep your heart rate in the orange zone, right? The fat burning zone. And I put that in for those who are listening. I just did major air quotes there on that. All right. And again, so the idea is that you're going to go, you're going to burn, you're going to do a section of I believe it's on a treadmill, and then you're going to do some kind of strength-based movement, usually with like a suspension trainer, like a TRX or some kind of relatively light dumbbells, and then you're going to go to a rower, and you're going to go through this circuit. Sorry, I should give a caveat. Things have changed for all of these class suppliers now by virtue of the post-COVID reality, where you're not sharing equipment. And we'll talk a little bit about that if we have the time, but it's not as important as understanding the premise behind it. So the idea is you're going to go and you're going to do this functionally cardio-based workout. And from my understanding, and again, I want to be clear, things may have changed since, but it was principally cardio-based, and up to 30 minutes, I believe, of the 40 or 45-minute workout was based on being on some kind of treadmill or elliptical, keeping your heart rate up in that orange zone. It's led by one instructor, and it is per group. At the time, is up to 15, 20 people, depending on the size of the studio. Now it's significantly less, and you do your workout, be done, go home, that's it. Efficient, fast, useful, and a lot of people got some benefit from it. My concerns as a fitness pro when this came out, and one of the criticisms that I have is its dependence and its bringing cardio, particularly running on a treadmill, to the forefront. And to me, that it's very, very. I don't find that very efficient. Let's put it that way. And especially when people like yourself, myself, and others have spent so much time trying to get people off the treadmills, not to judge them as ultimately bad, but to get them to doing some strength training, to really kind of focus on building that muscle, really focus on changing that metabolism at a permanent level or a relatively permanent level. I saw this as almost a step back, and I found that very disappointing. Anything that gets people exercising, that as long as it's not contraindicated, obviously to me is going to be a good move. But I felt like we were going back down the same path of, just get your heart rate up and that's all that matters. And that's exactly. I found it. I was just disappointed. That's the feeling I had from it. Like, what do you think? Like, what was your take on something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think anything that gets people moving is going to be better, right? Now, if you compare doing that to nothing, obviously it's going to be better. You're going to get an increase in heart rate. You're going to get some movement. All of that, I think, is great. I think you could probably, the catch-22 is that people want to sweat, and I think that's what CrossFit did really well, is that people felt pretty beat down. They felt like they got a, quote, workout in. Unfortunately, that, as we know, has the downside of literally rewiring your brain to be fatigue-seeking. Like, the goal isn't how much more weight can you lift, how much faster can you run, how many more watts could you do on a row or whatever. It's, oh boy, I need to go in and I need to like crawl out of the gym, and then that must be progress. And obviously you can make progress doing that for a while, but you're going to plateau. And what I've seen with a couple of clients who I've had who've did a lot of just, let's say, circuit training, is they kept seeking to make it harder and harder, but when we started measuring their performance of what they were actually doing, their performance was actually starting to go down. So physiologically, they were stuck, they weren't seeing the result, and then they get really lost because they're like, oh, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm trying harder, I feel more fatigued, but I'm not getting the result. And so then trying to rewire that framework is kind of challenging.
And I think that you just nailed it. And it is about rewiring the brain, and I'm not necessarily talking neuroplasticity here. That's certainly sure plays a component, but it was that reward center
Definitely.
where we're now rewarding that sensation. If you're not lying on the ground, devastated after a workout, you weren't successful.
Yeah.
And it gets reinforced by the culture within the organization where everyone is telling you the same thing, that it's some kind of a badge of honor. If you're not vomiting, if you're not absolutely devastated, you're not part of the club. You're not part of this special, unique team that we've created here. And that, to me, that is dangerous, really dangerous. But so I think Orange Theory took it a step beyond that. And again, they weren't going for all out, balls to the wall intensity. That's why they're orange zone, again, air quotes, right? So kind of keeping people within a relatively safe level of intensity, that whatever the 60 to 70% fat burning zone. And that was useful. Okay, but then again, is the activity in and of itself the most efficient? My ultimate kind of conclusion of that is I'm going to say no. I don't think it's the most efficient. I think, as you said, better than nothing, again, as long as it's not contraindicated. But doing, 30 minutes of running on a treadmill and a rower, sure, great, but is that what we really want people to be doing in terms of getting stronger and changing their metabolic rate and doing getting themselves more prepared for ADLs and just life in general, anti-aging, joint support, skeletal structure, all that stuff? Are we doing that? I'm going to say on a scale of 1 to 10, if I had to rate it in terms of that Orange Theory, I'm going to give it about a 4 or maybe a 5. And to me, again, not to say that it's a bad thing. If running is your jam and you enjoy it, then Orange Theory is where you want to be. But I'm not, and also in my terms, I don't want to pay that kind of money just to run on a treadmill because it's pretty pricey. I don't know if you're familiar at all with the pricing of it.
I think it's on the more expensive side from what I've seen.
Yeah, you're looking upwards of I know up here we're looking upwards of about $200 a month. For access for unlimited classes and that kind of thing. Again, all of this is changing now post-COVID based on limitations, but it's not cheap. It's not cheap. So you're looking at some pricey things. And now we're starting to bump into the neighborhood of one-on-one instruction, and to me, that's always the gold standard. So from there, we go to, there was one, do you have 9-round down there, 9-round boxing?
No. There's a few boxing gyms, but I don't know of any franchised ones, at least in Minnesota.
They're all over. There's 9-round. There's what we have one just called up here, just box, just literally just BOX. That's it. There's a few of them, and they all kind of follow the same idea, where the idea is you train like a fighter. Again, air quotes, people. And the idea is that you go in 9 rounds specifically, because their model is what I'm most familiar with. It's you do 9 rounds and you go from position to position to position, and you're doing, fighter inspired activities, hitting a speed bag, a heavy bag, focus pads, that kind of thing. You're ducking under a rope. You're just shadow boxing, whatever the case may be, skipping rope, the standard, think of, all the Rocky movies and think about what's been going on, what Sylvester Stallone did in those, minus the picking up of logs in the Russian, in the Siberian tundra. You know what I mean?
No big sides of beef hanging anywhere around.
What's that?
No big sides of beef hanging around anywhere. You have to buy some stuff.
I haven't seen any of those. Exactly. That might be interesting.
Yeah.
So they do that kind of thing. Again, great, gets people moving, gets people active, but we bump up into the limit of the limits of progression as they relate. The limits of variables of progression as they relate to doing a principally cardio-based activity. as opposed to a weight training one, a resistance-based one. You're running up to the limits as to what can you do. You can't increase duration because you're limited to the duration of the class, again, between 35 and 45 minutes. You can't really increase frequency because they try to limit you to doing one class a day. So maybe you're doing 7 classes a day. Okay, great. You can't really do that beyond a certain point. So really all you can do is try to increase the intensity. So you have one variable that you can change. How long before you bump up into a limit? And it's not a linear, as we all know. Intensity, all these things are non-linear. So you're not going to say, I'm going to add, this many punches to this round, every day. It can't be done. So again, we run into an adaptive limit where you see people adapting to that activity, and then they're stuck. And like you said earlier, you suggested earlier, you can only do so much, and you wire your brain to seeking that reward of that sensation, and you're no longer getting it. So it's kind of like chasing the tail of the dragon, I call it. You're always looking for that first high. Again, for those who may appreciate that, not that I've ever done anything like that before, so I can't. It's true. Yes, exactly. So, and I've always felt that people who do these classes are always searching for that initial hit, that same sensation again, and hit in both sense of the both terms are high intensity and the actual hit. So I found that to be a little bit. I find again that to be disappointing. I shouldn't say disappointing. I think I find it somewhat disingenuous. Do you know what I mean by that? Like, do you know what I'm saying?
Well, it's the marketing is usually with most of these places is this is the only thing you ever need, right? And it appeals to that sensation that all humans are wired for. I want the answer. I want the single bullet theory. I want that. It's harder to understand complexity, especially when you get into human physiology. So people want the answer. And so I think a lot of gyms fall into the habit of, therefore, marketing. This is the answer. And it is to some degree, but like you said, what is the progression in there for especially long-term success?
And that's exactly it. And I think I think we as fitness pros have a responsibility to keep educating people. That's not the answer. There is no one-stop shop. There is no magic bullet. There's no potion or pill you can take in order to make certain you're getting everything you need and everything you want. It is a process of development. It is one that takes time. It's one that requires consistent application of multiple variables over time. And that's the key. Multiple variables over time, not just one thing, one dimensional. And that's a really hard concept for people to understand, mostly because they don't want to understand it.
Yeah.
That's the reality. They just don't want to. They don't want to hear it. Just tell me what I have to do, I'm going to do it. It's like when I do my individual consults for one-on-one personal training instruction to try to get people to understand their rationale. It's that whole just give me a program. Mm-hmm. Just give me a program. I don't need your motivation. I can do it on my own. And again, the complexities that you alluded to earlier of the progressions, of the modifications, the adaptive responses, these things are just cast by the wayside because they're to quote our friend who was your former vice president down there. The one that Al Gore, yes.
Oh,
Al Gore. The inconvenient truth, right?
Yeah.
The inconvenient truth of progressions. It's real, and we just ignore it. We ignore it. So, and I think that's for all of these classes. And again, it comes back to the gold standard to me. I'm going to keep saying it is the one-on-one instruction. Which is what we all do, whether it's distance and remote the way you do it, or more one-on-one and direct the way I do it. It's that personalized approach. I recently wrote an article for the CanFit newsletter, monthly magazine up here. Are you familiar with CanFit, the organization?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the largest, one of the largest certifying bodies in the world, and certainly the largest in Canada. And I talked about that through the lens of people going back to the gym after the post-COVID closures, there was a real difference in people who went back who had utilized the services of a trainer and were utilized as a trainer versus those that did not. And I spoke at length about how the relationship with the trainer helped, and how people who have invested time, effort, and money into a trainer usually have a deeper understanding of what fitness actually is, along the lines of how we're talking about it, and how for many people it means more than just doing a 30-minute class a few times a week, be it F45 or Orange Theory, or even your Zumba class in your traditional gym setting. So I think, again, it's always going to be the gold standard for me, and I think that's the big one for most people. But let's save that for a little bit later. Let's move on to the next kind of class that's out there. The big one most recently, and this is the fastest growing one in the industry right now, is F45. Do you have them down where you are?
I think we're starting to get a few, but it's not as popular. And again, I'm all basing this on very limited exposure from what I've seen, since I haven't really been traveling for 6 months.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, F45 has come out of, I believe they came out of Australia. And there's, I don't know, something like 12 or 1,300 studios all over the world right now. And I know, again, up here in Toronto, they literally are almost seemingly at every corner. It's ridiculous. The whole Toronto market is saturated, and within the city proper, you can't buy a license anymore because they're all sold out.
Wow.
So there's got to be, I made close to 170 maybe. I'm not exactly sure. I have to double check those numbers, and I'm sure someone listening to this who actually knows, like, that guy's an idiot. Probably am. I totally am. But I know there's many, and they're all over the place. And I've worked closely with them in helping start up a few studios on a consultancy level. And one of the reasons I did it was I thought their system was a little different. And I noticed I didn't say better. I just said different. And there's a specific reason for that. The one thing I like about F45, and this is their traditional model, the idea is that you have multiple stations of exercises throughout the gym floor, or the studio floor, and it's all hand-based equipment. They will use rowing machines and studio cycles, but very rarely. Anyway, and the idea is that you're in station one and you're doing your workout, and there may be up to 2 other people doing that same exercise at that station, and then as a group you move to the next station on a prescribed time frame interval. The standard whatever the interval is, it changes all the time. And there's different exercises and they would base one day on strength and one day on cardio. And the idea is that you're working different energy systems as you progress through the week. How do I say it? Now what they've done, and I praise the organization as a business organization, they managed to kind of adjust and adapt to the new reality very well. And when everybody thought that they were just going to go under because there's no way they're going to be able to run their business the way they did, they adapted it, and now everybody stays in one station and they do multiple exercises within one location, one station with their set of equipment. So it's pretty great what they did. And again, I'm really impressed with how quickly the mothership was able to get everybody back up to speed. So let's talk about the exercise. Let's talk about it physiologically. So it's primarily resistance based. Again, similar to the movements that you just described earlier in CrossFit, the deadlifts, the overhead press, some overhead pressing, some cleaning, with kettlebells and dumbbells and barbells. So in that regard, great sound movements. And then you're using some ropes and you're using some Bosu balls and again, the cycles and whatnot. So really kind of great, fun stuff. The difference between what they do there versus what CrossFit did, it's never AMRAP. It's never you're never going till you're done. And one of the things that they always say is, when you feel tired, stop. If you can't do any more, stop. That
Novel concept.
that thing. What's that?
Novel concept.
Novel concept. Yeah.
It's not based on just try harder.
That's exactly. But Mike, you nailed it on the head. Like that's exactly. Here we are. That should not be a novel concept. That should
I know.
that should just be how to do it. Like, be reasonable. And this is why I was really impressed by them. They promote this kind of not rational, but a reasonable approach to fitness. Yes, it's intense. Yes, it's hard. Absolutely. But when I went in to do a class, they always said, hey, if you're feeling you can't go anymore, just stop. Just take a break. Rest. There's no need to go on. Now, granted, that may have been the particular studio I was at.
Sure.
But from what I've heard when speaking to some others who are involved in the education side of that, that's what they preach. It's like, just be careful. So, so I do like what they do. My criticisms, and there are many, my criticisms of F45 are some of their exercise selections. Again, I know they one of their big things is you're never going to do the same workout twice, right? That's their claim to fame, which that's wonderful. But how do you chart your progress?
Yeah.
How do you measure progressions? How do you know? Like, how are you noticing improvement? So that's kind of cool, but novel. But I often find that when people ascribe to that notion, they're novel for the sake of being novel.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean by that? It's they're being creative. Like they'll create all these cool exercises just to say, hey, look at this cool exercise I created, as opposed to here's the value of this exercise.
It's like a sumo deadlift high pull. It's like I'll never understand that one.
Yes.
It's like, really? What? Okay, I don't get it.
Yes, I think that's actually an exercise in their program.
Probably.
And I know throughout my career, that's always been to me a real challenge. I years ago I was running a gym and I had a trainer who was told to me, she was when I first took over the gym, she was a veteran trainer. She was really great, wonderful clients, and she kept on renewing her clients, which is wonderful. That's good. And then I watched her, and I remember she would say to me, my job is to build a dependency with my clients.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. That's it. Okay, now why did you say uh-oh? Why did you say uh-oh?
Oh, because I think that's, like, to me, the thing that I don't like about the training industry, which I say has gotten a lot better.
Yes.
And as much as I hate to admit it, I agree from a business model, right? So my goal is when I work with clients that hopefully at the end, either we change goals because we got to your goal and you want to work on something else, great. Or you kind of know what to do now. It's an educational process. I do actually the direct opposite because I don't want them to be texting me, which has happened, from Target going, oh, are these green beans okay? Like all the crazy stuff that you get when they're super dependent upon you only. And I get it. You're trying to keep them in business for as long as possible. You don't have to get new clients, all that kind of stuff. But
yeah.
At some point, they have to go out into the really real world, or you may not be there, and they're like not prepared to handle that at all.
Yes, you're totally right. And I don't remember where I read this, and I'm embarrassed because it's such an important piece in my life. But I remember reading somewhere where it said about trainers, describing trainers, a trainer tells, a good trainer demonstrates, an excellent trainer educates.
I like that.
I love that one. I wish I remember who said it because I'd love to credit them. I just don't recall. I'm just saying it's not mine. I'm not taking credit for it, but I do use it a lot. And that's the ethos I've kind of lived with and educated any trainers I've worked with over the years to say, if you feel that you need to build a dependency with your clients and they have to be dependent on you, that says to me one thing. It says to me that you as a trainer aren't educating yourself.
Yeah.
You're not learning. You're not growing. And if you feel you're going to teach your client everything you need to know more. Learn more stuff.
If that takes 20 minutes, you're hosed for starters.
Exactly. and instead of having to come up with crazy, and alluding to that trainer earlier, one of the things she did was she came up with these crazy exercises all the time. They're just really weird. I didn't, listen, I've done some weird stuff with clients. I've had them do some weird things that don't look anything like a traditional exercise, but there's always a rationale, because when I build an exercise, I look at the person's goal, that particular requirement, whether it's addressing some kind of orthopedic issue or an imbalance or whatever it is that we're doing, and you reverse engineer the movement to accomplish that. But that's based on, sound physics and anatomy, so that there's some logic and rationale to the movement. It doesn't always work, but at least there's a rationale behind it. With her and other trainers like her, I remember I would ask, why are you doing that? Oh, because my client expects to do something different today. And to me, that's a very, very dangerous, and scary thing. So there's no thought process, there's no rationale. We're just going to do something different. And that's part of the criticism I have with F45 is, again, a lot of these movements that they put out there, while they might seem reasonable, there's one of they like to do the high pulls, big on high pulls, like narrow grip, and they insist on a narrow grip. So I'm always worried about shoulder stuff, and maybe there's a better option. Maybe go a little wider if we're going to do a high pull, and things like that, or standing on an unstable surface while putting a weights overhead. That makes me super nervous, and is that the best choice? Probably not. The risk isn't the risk to benefit ratio doesn't work in that situation. But again, because they have to do something novel all the time, that's driving them to do things that they might not do in a more traditional circumstance, or a good trainer might not do in a traditional circumstance. That said, in the F45 setting, there's always at least 2 trainers walking around, which I think, to me, it makes it way better. And I think it's great to have that. So there's always at least 2, sometimes 3 professionals keeping an eye on everybody moving around. And I think the the participant numbers are between. Now I think it's down to about 15 people per studio. It used to be up to as many as 36 in the larger studios. Yeah. And I got to tell you, I've been to a class where there are 36 people going through, there's a DJ playing, and it's amazing. It's a great energy experience. But everybody there was in relatively good condition, not a lot of orthopedic issues, and was prepared to do the work. And so in that regard, this particular studio held itself to a higher standard and was very careful. And I found that very useful and encouraging. But, how many have that same ethical responsibility to their members? I don't know. I can only speak to what I've seen. But that, again, I think that the basic foundation of the F45 approach is kind of neat. And because it's not, push until you vomit, to me, that's generally a good thing. I'm sure you agree that's usually a good idea, to not let your clients vomit. That's bad. I mean, funny story. In some advanced athletes, I think for me the hallmark is, what range do you have, right? If someone is brand new, like, their ability to do high quality work is just limited because they're just really not that trained. Right. So if you tell them, okay, I want you to go at an RPE of a 9.5 out of 10, it's like, I don't know. They have like no idea. Right. So when I was training people more in person, I had to get better at what is a exercise I can get them to do where I know they could go really hard in terms of effort, but not mechanically destroy themselves. Right. So I did a lot of sledgehammer work, a lot of car pushes, reverse sled drags, stuff like concentric movements. You kind of automatically will line up the right biomechanics and that kind of stuff. But funny story is, so if you get into more advanced level athletes, you will, on certain test days, I think this almost gets sort of romanticized now with Instagram and Facebook and everything else, that people who are new will see a more advanced athlete go very hard, not understand the context that, okay, this was a test day or a competition day. We had that in Costa Rica once. Pat Davidson had us do this horrible thing he called the Cajun, which was from mass 2,
It was trap bar deadlift for 10 reps, flat bench press for 10 reps, and then what was it? Chin ups as max or pull ups as max as you could. A 45-degree press, and there's one other exercise I'm missing. I think there was a squat or something in there too. Like 5 exercises, 30 seconds between each one, 10 rep max for each one, and then you had like a 2 or 3 minute rest between rounds. You had to do 3 rounds. Whoever could do the highest number of volume in the shortest amount of time was the winner.
Yeah.
So completely just utterly friggin' just miserable.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
So we're running rounds through this, and all of a sudden I look over, and here's a buddy like laying on the ground, like twitching like this under the waterfall. And I looked over, I'm like, Anthony, I'm like, dude, are you okay? And Pat walks by and he goes, oh yeah, he just finished his 3rd round. He'll be fine. And I'm
my God.
Oh, okay. But I think if that's taken out of context, you see that in people who are new go, oh my God, that's the amount of effort I must apply.
Yes.
They forget that a lot of these guys have been training for 10 to 20 years too, so.
But you're absolutely right, Mike. And this is the kind of thing that you remember a few years ago when the 300 workout was really popular.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and then all those workout challenges. And listen, that's great. I used to do it all the time. And I actually, a funny story about that. A guy bet me $5,000 I couldn't get it in under 20 minutes.
Wow.
And yeah, which was stupid. And I did, and I won. And he never paid me. He never paid me.
Oh.
So Dave, if you're listening, you owe me 5 G's.
That's right. Pay up, buddy.
So anyway, but again, that was fun. But I was also in tremendous condition at the time, where this was my body had no issue doing that. I had built up that kind of approach, that kind of conditioning and capacity. And this is another thing where. When you're doing it in a group setting, you're going to have that natural kind of tendency to want to keep up and not want to suck out and not want to bail on your comrades, and that's human nature. But again, we need to let people know that if you're not ready, don't do it. You'll get there, but you're not going to get there if you destroy yourself in the first round. Yeah. So these are real challenges for people, and it's funny you mentioned that challenge. Like I recently went back and I started doing some EDT style workouts, like popularized by Staley.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta tell you, I love it. I love it. I really like what he's doing. How that works with that. You're using a 10 rep max, but you're only doing 5 reps, for example.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a really great kind of built-in biofeedback that you're not going to go to your limit. You're staying well away from your limits to avoid those injurious possibilities. And if we can figure out some way to structure these classes, whether it's F45 or Orange Theory 9 or any of those, even CrossFit along those that kind of thinking, I think will go a really, really long way in increasing the longevity of your participants. This is the thing I never understood about CrossFit. If your goal is to hurt your clientele, okay, what happens to your business? Like how is that a good business model? I've never understood that.
But I think that was actually built when you could put up a sign and say CrossFit, East Cupcake, whatever, and people just automatically flood your studio. And that hasn't been the case for many years now. But I think the thought unconsciously was, well, it doesn't matter. I've got plenty of people coming in, so I just don't worry about
it. Exactly. With such a short-sighted view. And
I don't agree with that, but yes.
Of course not. I remember years ago, I was working, a buddy of mine, this guy that I knew, he had a couple of boxes, and he brought one of his athletes to me to take a look. So I was doing some manual work at the time, manual body work at the time. And he came to see me, and I was looking at him. I said, okay, well, what happened? And he goes, well, we did a 9-minute, all out, I can't remember what it was, AMRAP workout. And then we finished with 1 rep max snatch.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I said, pardon, you did 9 minutes of all out effort, 9 minutes. We're not talking 90 seconds, 9 minutes of all out effort. And then you went and you did a 1 rep max snatch. This was your 1 rep max rested, right? He goes, yeah. So I said, I just looked at him. I said, "What are you doing? Why would you do that?" He goes, "Well, that was the WOD." I'm like, "Well, who developed
Yeah.
the WOD?" And he points to his coach right there, the guy
Oh.
who boxed. So I immediately turned to the guy and said, "You're an asshole." Like, why would you do this to these people? Like, use your head, man. Like, what are you thinking about? And sure enough, that this guy was getting ready to represent the box at one of the games, one of the regional games, but he was done. He couldn't do it anymore. He was hurt. So I like, all right, man, he's out. Like I did my best, but you damaged this guy. He had some structural damage.
Yeah.
Fortunately, not as bad as that really famous or infamous video of the guy dropping the loaded barbell on his lumbar. Remember that one?
There's probably been a few of them I've seen, but yeah.
That guy, apparently that guy became some kind of a paraplegic. I don't know if
Oh, I
that's
know which one you're talking about now. That was from many years ago.
many years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
we're old, Mike. We've been around for a while, but
I know. And I remember seeing like the mixed grip deadlift and people's biceps popping, and then the
oh yeah,
deadlift and box jumps, was it, and people blowing Achilles heels. And yeah, so I mean, at least to CrossFit's credit, I will say that most of the coaches that I do know have
yes,
gotten infinitely better over the last few years.
they had to.
And from doing continuing education, I will say that out of all the organizations I've worked with, like people who do CrossFit are routinely probably number one to pay for continuing ed. I can't say
That's
that about
amazing.
very many other organizations. So
Oh,
it has gotten a lot better.
that is amazing, and I think that's a testament to the kind of person, the quality of the individual that enters that sort of
Totally.
field. And I think it's really important. Now, I know we got a couple more
Yeah, about
minutes. Is
5 minutes
that
left. Yeah.
okay? I don't want this to turn into a bashing of anyone, and I'm not, because one of the things that's really important to understand is, as we've always been saying from the beginning, it's important to do something. It's important to be active on some level. But I always, another story, I can't remember where it was, and I get this all the time. I walk into a restaurant, a bar, whatever, and someone will say to me, "Hey, and wow, you're really built. Like, how do I get like you?" And my response is always the same: hire a trainer.
Yeah. Hire a professional.
Yeah, and their response is typically, "No, I don't need that. I
No,
don't
what's
need."
my program, bro?
Yeah, okay, then stay small and fat. Like, what do you want me to tell you? Like,
Yeah.
you ask me what's the secret. I tell you there is no secret. It's just do it smart, hire a trainer, learn, study, grow, get better at it. And you want a shortcut. You want, I took a pill, or I ate, a pound of carrots every
Yeah.
day. It's not it. So, and I think that's, again, alluding to what we said earlier about people looking for the magic bullet. There is no magic class. There is no magic thing. It's all about consistency and application, but being thoughtful and reasonable. So what I would tell anybody listening to this is find a good professional, which, find someone, and obviously someone like yourself, with all the programs that you offer and the online education you offer. Like, I've learned a ton from you over the years, and I think there's so many people whom you've helped. And again, I'm not here to blow smoke here, Mike. I just really, really appreciate and respect what you've always done. I genuinely respect you and what you've done in this industry and what continue to do. And I appreciate the opportunity to have these discussions, because it's a forum for those of us who actually give a shit. Like, we actually care about the people who are listening, and we take responsibility in the words that we say, that they have weight to people. And it's easy to bash each other in the industry. We've done it so many times, all of us at one point or another.
Oh yeah.
You like CrossFit, and I can't remember who it was. I think it was TC Luoma who wrote an article on T Nation about there's room for all the freaks at the table. I think
That
that was
might
one of
be.
his articles.
It might have been him, or it might have been Brian Cron, but yeah, it could be one of those guys.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Either way, it was a T Nation article. I remember looking at that, going, "That's so amazing," And there really are, there really is room for everybody. As long as we hold each other to a higher standard of really trying to grow. And what you said about the CrossFit instructors, and that to me is very heartening, and very it elevates me, and to make me feel that there's hope, and again, the work you do, the work that that Berardi and his organizations do, even John Goodman of the
Yeah.
PTDC, all those guys, like, to name drop here,
Yeah. Good
I think
Canadians.
they do some amazing work. What's
Yeah.
that? Sorry?
Good Canadians.
They're Canadian, yes. Sorry, a little bias. Is my bias showing, Mike? Let me just put that away. Hold on. No, but
No, I love
even,
those guys.
and I think it's wonderful, and I think it's necessary because we have all this confusion that people get inundated by, particularly now with Instagram, and
Oh yeah.
everybody and his or her brother and sister is a pro, and the fake photos, and the fake programs, and do this program and you'll get a booty like this.
No.
It makes me sad. It makes me sad. But then again, we have conversations like this with people like you, and it gives me hope that reason will prevail. I have to believe that reason will prevail. And I have, as you may recall, I've had an affiliation with the MAT organization and the
Mm-hmm.
RTS organization,
Yep.
and now the muscle consortium and the muscle specialists, all these groups, and they're really great people who their goal is just to elevate the game for everybody. And I'd highly recommend anybody who's actually looking to learn to look into these kinds of organizations and start their journey into being critical. Being critical. It's very important to be critical, as opposed to taking things at face value just because Mike T. Nelson said it or because Mario Mavrides said it. No, be critical. Call us out. Send the questions. Challenge us to demonstrate why we believe what we believe, and it'll be there. We can provide the evidence. We can provide the rationale for why we do things this way. It's not pie in the sky or my favorite because my professor told me so.
Yeah.
How sad is that when you hear that, man? Like,
I don't even like it when people tell it to me and put it on their papers. I'm like, dude, you didn't learn anything in this class.
Yeah.
Like, you have to, back up where they're teaching you how to write and how to back it up with data. And I don't even care if your opinion's completely different than mine. That's not the point. It's, can you construct a, valid argument and have data? And,
a cogent argument.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know when I do my teaching, I want people to argue with me. I want my students to disagree
You want
with
them
me.
to be engaged. You want them to ask good questions. Yeah.
Exactly. And I love that. So I think, again, the stuff that we're doing is really important. The stuff that I think we're trying to get the organizations held accountable for what they say. It's not easy, but I think it's good work and it must be done. And I think it's only going to happen at a grassroots level, like we do here, where we just talk and we have conversations, and some people get into it, some people don't. And that's really it, man. I think that sums everything up. We can talk about stuff like this all day, and I hope it didn't come off as too critical of people. I'm not. I'm just really careful. And I want people to be careful about their decisions. And there's no hate, there's no hatred, there's no anger. It's just be responsible for what you say and what you claim in your marketing, in your packaging, and in your Instagram posts, and just be sure people are listening. And there's somebody out there listening who is going to take you at your face value, and be sure you mean what you say and back it up. That's all.
Yeah,
That's all.
And I would just echo your advice too. It's the same as anything else in life. Like, if you want to figure out how to run a business, I mean, I paid a business mentor a ton of money for 2.5 years because I didn't go to business school. I didn't take a single friggin' business class. And
Yes.
if I want to run my own business, maybe I should pay this guy who, had done fitness chains and had, a lot of success, but he could also explain, what he did, right? So I think fitness is no different than pretty much any other way. If you want to be a professional chef, you're probably going to pay someone to show you how to do it, right? So fitness isn't any different. If you want to change your body comp and, get stronger, whatever your goals are, like, paying someone to kind of mentor you along in the process is going to be the fastest way there. That's no different than any other field. So I agree.
100%. That's exactly it. It's something unique about fitness. It's, people always say, well, I know how to use my body, so I don't need a trainer.
Yeah. Have you seen how you use your body? I don't know about that.
I
Sounds
always
bad.
say, I use two analogies for that. I say, one, have you ever been in an airplane? Like you've been a passenger, yeah. So you know how to sit in an aircraft. That doesn't mean you know how to pilot one, you
Yeah.
know. Or you know how to drive a car doesn't mean you know how it works, right? And what you should do to take care of it. So I use all those examples, and it works for the most part. But it's never easy to get people to recognize there's more to it than take care of the body than just giving it some food and sleep once in a while. There's more, way more, especially if you have a goal: body recompositioning,
Yeah.
performance, strength, whatever the case may be. And that's just it. But listen, this I think that's why we're here, and this is why we love what we do, in spite of the ups and downs of this industry treating us well some days and not so well other days. But we do what we can and try to maintain a nobility, if you will, not even nobility, an ethical responsibility to elevating the game overall for everybody. That's what I
Yeah.
think.
Love it.
For what it's worth.
Awesome. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah. What's that? Sorry.
Where can people find out more about you?
So again, I am on Instagram, Mario Mavrides, my name, Mario Mavrides. That's the best way to get a hold of me. Send me messages. Alternatively, I'm now working with Tapout Fitness, so you can find us online. Tapout Fitness Canada is where I am based. Right now, we just opened our first location in Woodbridge, just north of Toronto. We're right next to Canada's Wonderland, if that helps. So it's a big amusement park in Canada, R1. So yeah, I'm happy to, if there's any Canadian listeners who want to come by and converse, I'm happy to have that conversation. Check out the facility; it really is amazing. And next time you're up here, bud, we're gonna make sure we get a good workout in at the facility. All right?
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome. Hopefully, I'd love to go back to Toronto. I love it there. It's a great city.
We love having you, man. So anytime.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Always good talking, and take care and stay sane in Canada, eh?
Always, always, buddy. Give my regards to Jody, okay?
Will do. Thank you. See ya.
Good, buddy. Take care. Have a great trip. See you later.
Will do. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the Flex Diet Podcast. Greatly appreciate it. Thanks again to Mario for coming back on again, his second appearance here, and giving you the rundown of some of the major gym chains and the pros and the cons. So if you or a family member are interested in that, you'll have hopefully more information on how to make an educated decision. And if you're looking to take your nutrition and recovery to the next level, or you are a trainer and you're looking for a complete system to do nutrition and recovery, check out the Flex Diet certification. Go to flexdiet.com, FLEXDIET.com. We break down the 8 different interventions you can do, from proteins to fats to carbohydrates to fasting, sleep, NEAT, exercise, and more, all within a very flexible system based on flexible dieting and metabolic flexibility. We even have a lot of super cool expert interviews in there from my good buddy Dr. Stu Phillips, Dr. Jose Antonio, Dr. Dan Party, Dr. Hunter Waldman, and many others, even Dr. Eric Helms, and they're talking about flexible dieting specifically. So go to flexdiet.com, go to the wait list, and you'll be notified the next time that it opens, and you'll also get put on the daily newsletter, which is all my ramblings and content delivered directly to your inbox. So flexdiet.com, FLEXDIET.com. Thanks again so much for listening to this podcast and sharing it. If you'd like to leave us any comments or reviews, we would absolutely love that. We do read all of them. Thank you so much. Talk to you again soon.